Aloha, everybody, and welcome to another wonderful episode here on my Soul Talk on my channel. I'm so excited for my beautiful guest today, Andrea Atherton. Has 26 years of experience coaching couples and singles into cultivating loving, intimate, passionate relationships by first grounding into self-love with equal parts of spirituality and science. She holds a MS in art therapy, is a certified yoga instructor, and a gifted healer intuitive. Andrea is the host of the Love Anarchy podcast, helping others create a love life on their terms. I love this so much. Thank you, Andrea, for being here. Thank you for having me last time on your podcast. I'm going to, for everybody, before we dive in, I was a guest at Andrea's podcast, and I'm going to link the episode below in case you want to, like if you resonate and you want to hear some more, just go in there and see what we talked about there. But first, hello, Andrea. So beautiful to have you.
Hello, May. So nice to chat with you again.
Yes, I love
so excited to be here. And I'm used to being the podcast hostess or goddess, whatever. So this is, I love stretching myself and being on the other side of the mic or other side of the podcast.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited because I think we're going to have wonderful things to talk about. We were just talking about how we both do our interviews very intuitively and just follow into that. And one thing that just came up, and I think I just want to use that for starters, if I may, we were just talking about our ancestors coming in and helping us, and maybe I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that, how that happened, because we just had this. I don't know if we want to share what just happened with.
I sure can. So I'll start and go backwards. So I was meditating and doing some, and I am a channel as well. I was channeling. And I'm practicing a little bit more. I channel and I write. But I've been called to all of a sudden, okay, now you need to speak it. You need to get that throat chakra working. So I was meditating on that. I'm trying to get some guidance. And a picture that I had just replaced up on the wall fell down of my grandfather and my grandmother. So it's mainly a picture of my grandfather when he was in the Navy in the 40s. And I said, okay. And I'm like, and then I really packed it with tape again. I really got it up there and I sat down again. It fell down again. And the picture of him cracked a little bit. I'm like, okay, clear message. So my grandfather, although I knew he was a guide, he's really stepped up as a prominent guide for whatever transition we're going through, what I'm going through right now. And I trust when these ancestors or guides show up to help me make it a little bit easier down the path.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Because I also work a lot with ancestors because I believe they are so important. Even if we knew them in their life, and there's so many people have, or we all do. We all have problems with problems within the family system. Because there's always different belief systems and different things that have happened. And because you mentioned, your grandfather in the Navy, like for me being in Europe, it's very, there's wars that have been, were still in the memories of everybody, and that had, separated families for a long time. And I love that we have the possibility, especially to the ancestors that have passed already, that they are there to help us, heal all those things within our system now.
Yeah. And when I channeled him too, he was telling me all the things that he didn't know how to tell me, like when I was little, but he was really probably the most loving, kind relationship I had with any of my living ancestors that I knew. And really showed me what love was. But he was, now that he's on the other side, able to articulate so much more about how he saw me and who I really am, and reminding me of that, which is such a precious gift. And and I can feel him right here with me again.
So beautiful. I have that in a way with actually with several, well, with one grandfather and with one great great grandmother. That both of them I never met in real life, but they appeared all both in different times, and one is still very close, and the other one I feel I see him with the grandfather because I feel that he was an explorer. His energy was very, like the explorer person, and for me, it felt such a huge gratitude towards me taking this, when I became a nomad. I love the term nomad because I mean, I'm depending on where I am right now, but having that freedom to just follow that explorer instinct inside of me and stepping into that energy. How would you say, or maybe, confirm or not, but I feel that our ancestors can show us so much about ourselves today because they, of the things that they learned. And I'm not talking about the negatives that of course are things that want to be healed, but there's also this power that comes from our lineage that we might not see, but once we start working with our ancestors, we start seeing, oh my God, there's so many, gifts that they actually had that we didn't see, or maybe weren't able to see, but are able to do it now, right?
He's able to offer a different perspective now that he's transcended, and like all the things that we have that are able to teach us or cause us to grow, that those kind of pains or ailments. And he had PTSD, and he had but what I go back to is he had open heart surgery, probably when I was 2025. And I remember coming home from college and him like all of a sudden being lovey-dovey and stuff like that. He told me, he's like, them breaking my chest open my heart. And I'm like, whoa. And he's like, I don't think of you as a granddaughter. I think of you as a daughter. And like, he would say these things. And then in my sitting with him again, with him on this level, he was able to expand on it and see things from such a different perspective than being in the 3D here. And it makes so much sense, and able to correct the things that I thought were going on and really, drive home the truth of all the situations too. Kind of, like a higher bird's eye perspective.
Yeah, I love that, and having them there, just knowing they are there and they're there to support us is also very, wonderful. Because I mean, not all the ancestors come and say, okay, I want to help you, or I have the solutions that you need right now. But just them knowing that they're still there, even though maybe, for those of us, or not for those of us, but for those people that might not have reconnected with their ancestors yet. It's also important, I think, to know that your ancestors are there and they're helping you. No matter what, they're there and they're supporting you.
Yep. And that's the gift in it. And I had this ability from the time I was young, but it kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I kind of packed it away, but like unpacking it now. And when our ancestors come, like it's only been my grandfather and my great grandmother Lilla, and she came when I first had my daughter, and I named my daughter after her. And then she kind of came and was helping me out with my divine feminine there. But for you listeners, just being open to the message you receive. And we can't expect that they come and pictures fall all the time. I mean, sometimes you need that, but you got to look for the signs that they're there and they're trying to send you messages, and be open to it. It's not like somebody like a sky writing in the sky, or they don't send you a letter, or it's usually a metaphor, a symbol or something. And be open to it, and and sit with it to see what kind of message is being sent to you. And it can come in your dreams, it can come in your meditations, it can come from somebody else saying something. And I remember after my grandfather first passed, he loved big band music and Glenn Miller. And I knew he was there because every time I went to shopping, the Muzak would always have big band music on and Glenn Miller. And his favorite song was In the Mood. So I heard it all the time.
Oh, I bet. That's so beautiful. For me, I think because of my Chinese ancestry, it's been because I'm always, whenever I travel, I'm always drawn to Chinatowns, all over the place. Maybe because, in Germany, we don't have Chinatowns. So whenever I travel outside of Germany, I'm sort of like, oh, so I was a couple of years ago, I was visiting a friend in Mexico, and I told him like, hey, he wanted to do a tour with me in the city center, and there was a Chinatown, and I'm like, oh, can we go there? And the moment we arrived, there was, dragons celebrating the New Year. I had completely forgotten that it was Chinese New Year, and I was like, oh, that's nice, like, okay, just seeing that. But I didn't, I didn't give it too much, because back then I wasn't realizing the signature behind it. But then a couple of years later, I was in Hawaii, and out of nowhere, I mean, I'm learning with my Hawaiian teacher, and then she was like, oh, I need to go and grab something at Walmart. Let's go to Walmart. I mean, Walmart of all places. So we go there, and the moment we get out of the car, we see Chinese dragons celebrating in front of the entrance. And she just looks at that, turns around, my teacher, she looks at that, turns around and goes like, this is a message from your ancestors. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I remember the time before. So now I'm a little bit more vigilant with that thing. But because you mentioned it could be anything, there's also a form of bird that I connect with my Chinese ancestors, and I've like this year has been so strong. I've been seeing this bird all over. It's amazing. And I feel like you said, it's so important to look for those signs because they are there. They are there. It's just about, being open to seeing them.
And we're not alone. And sometimes we feel alone and we don't have the answers, especially if we're just up here in our left brain. But the answers come through feelings, that it comes through so many other avenues besides thinking, because actually our thinking brain only knows here into the past. Yeah. So it can't really guide us. It could take pieces of the past and kind of speculate that it could happen again, but it can't open us up to being open to new experiences. And that's why the gift with our guides and our ancestors is so important. Yeah. And like you just said, and you reminded me, do you know what happened right before this? I was in a park that I go hiking in often, so like 2 weekends ago. And all of a sudden I look over and I'm like, oh, there's a little memorial over there. It was a veterans memorial. And I went in there and I'm like, because my father was a Vietnam vet. My grandfather was a Navy World War II vet. My other grandfather was so all veterans. And I went in and I just kind of felt like the connection with all of these men, and they had signs of the different branches, Navy, Marines, Army, National Guard, and all that. And I kind of really just sat with the energy. And now that you say that, I got those signs. I was kind of being primed before, but sometimes it takes a little bit to put together.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, I feel that if we don't listen right away, they'll find a way to show themselves even more so that we can listen more into that. That's so beautiful. Andrea,
it is. No, go ahead.
No, you do.
Nope, go ahead. I'm like, I kind of lost the thought. So edit that part out.
That's how it happens when you do everything intuitively.
That's okay.
How, tell us a little bit about how you became who you are today.
Wow, that's a long story. So different aspects. I think a big turning point was when I was in grad school in my mid to late 20s. And spirituality was just coming into the idea of psychotherapy. It was mind, body, but spirit was added. So the director of the program was writing a book called Spiritual Art Therapy. So I kind of got really inducted to that. connecting with spirituality, with the art making process. And I think that really started my intuitive abilities back up again. So that was kind of the start of the process. And then I really got into Jungian work, and I wrote my thesis that did dream work into creating art, into meditation, and it just started circling around and just unbridling so much information. The whole thing was a creative process. So then I moved out to Colorado after I got my degree in art therapy, and I started working in addictions counseling with families and individuals, and just kind of moved on from there. Started my own practice in 2001, always trying to grow. I got my certification as a yoga instructor, and then later on a Reiki. So introducing energy work and introducing mindfulness and yoga philosophy along with the art therapy, and working with that in so many different ways, and integrating it when it wasn't integrated at the time was always a lot of fun. And most recently, the last couple of years, I've funneled all this experience I have in my intuitive ability healing and experiential modalities into this coaching practice. But my calling, I had to be really honest with myself. My calling is I'm here to learn about love and teach others about love. Speaking of coming up over and over, and that came up in a card that I pulled after my divorce, like 16, 17 years ago. And I remember like such a big transition in my life. I remember sitting there, I'm like, that's it. Because we think, why are we here? And then I realized no matter what I did, I could weave that intention into all the work I did, or all the play I did, or with my friends. So that's the birth of my coaching practice. And then I'm like, I want to focus on conscious love and teaching people to be able to manifest their partner or whatever they want in their lives by first loving their self. That's foundation. And the same when I work with couples is bringing the focus back on themselves, to know themselves, to know their heart, connect with their heart energy as a foundation to move into creating a more conscious, intimate, and passionate relationship.
I love that. So you're not only supporting the ones that don't have a relationship but want to create it inside of their lives, you also help, couples that may have, gotten lost. Basically, when we hear about, partner, is it partner therapy, right? Or counseling?
Couples therapy.
Couples therapy, thank you.
That was the word I was looking. Years of that, yep.
Nice. How would you say, because I remember, and I believe it's a little bit different, I think it's probably a little bit different for you, but I remember, because I had a colleague here in Germany that was a couples counselor. He was specialized in it, but he said that at least in his case, and you always attract, also as a coach, you attract different kinds of people. He said in his case, the clients mainly came to him to actually have him as a support to separate from each other, because they're most of the times. So he was basically there supporting one or both sides in the separation process that they didn't know when they started with him. So they came in.
I'll tell you something that over the years that I've noticed when I've seen couples come to therapy when it's usually one or the other is done. So I think that's a very good insight, because the patterns have been so ingrained for so long. It's only when finally somebody says, I'm done, they're like, okay, let's go to counseling. And unfortunately, that doesn't work so well. So I'm like, let's not waste our money here. When I was doing couples therapy, I want you to stand up, point your toes toward each other, look at each other, and say that you're totally in. And if both of you aren't totally in, we need to head in a different direction. Because that's the commitment in the container right there. Because it's so easy when the hard things come up that somebody walks out or, shuts down or threatens to leave. And that's one of the most important things. That's why the coaching is so important as things come up. Hire a coach, hire me to help iron out, open up communication, see what's below that, see where the wounds or the patterns are in your own life. So you're not just saying, he's making me feel like that, or she's making me feel like that. It takes two to tango. So when you're breaking it up little by little, and you're coming to get help prior to everything coming to that place where somebody's done, is so important in relationships. And I really encourage anybody who feels like that to not sweep it under the rug.
I love that you're saying that. So to all our couples listening in, whenever you feel something come up and you feel like you can, go through this with your partner yourself, go and get help early on, not so that the couples counselor is not going to be there for the separation process, basically.
And I found that a lot. Yeah.
Did you ever experience that a couple came back together without having that one-sided commitment?
I have had them come back at a certain time, and that's the main thing that I found. As long as they were both able to step in the container and not threaten to leave or not leave, that was kind of the basis for, because they both needed to feel safe. And yes, some did turn it around, and some, I helped through separate in a mindful and intentional way.
And that helps a lot too, because it's nicer if couples can separate peacefully instead of, fighting and maybe even dragging the kids in the whole process into the whole thing. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, a successful relationship isn't based on how many years you have together. It's how you change and grow. And I think that's what happens. Partners don't communicate about their growth or their wants, or they stay stagnant and there becomes a resentment. Relationships are the highest form of spiritual enlightenment there is, because as a partner, we're always holding up mirrors for one another, whether it be family, siblings, always. And we think it's about the other person. No, and I take people back to themselves and say, well, what did you learn about that last relationship? And what gift did it teach you? Because again, we're here to grow and we're here to learn. We're not here to put on a ring and say, oh, we're successful. We've been together 30 years. We haven't fought. We don't communicate. And God, we're not having sex anymore.
Oh God, yeah. I love that you're mentioning that, because I feel that everybody deserves to have a beautiful relationship with their partner. And I mean, we have so many beautiful examples of, successful, truly successful relationships. But there's also so many examples, especially like the older generations that sort of like felt that they had to stay together because of the kids, or they had to, fight it through. And I mean, that's just showing your kids that you're not willing to actually work on the things to make it truly work, right? That's what you're giving your kids as an example.
Yeah. I think the old paradigm of a relationship had a lot to do with survival in our lower chakras. Our first, second, and third chakra were all in, it was 60s and 70s when we moved it up to the heart, and now throat and up to spirit. So there's so many different elements that we need to be cognizant of, because if we try to fit in the old paradigm, it's just not working anymore. And there's that debate about the masculine feeling demasculated and the women having to take on masculine roles. Well, women don't need men like they used to. And that's what needs to change. And there's still that polarity of, this is what it means to be masculine, this what it needs to be feminine. And you know what? We have both masculine and feminine within ourselves. And it's just finding another partner to balance that out, whether it be a male, female, non-binary, whatever. It's, those tight little ideals of what the different roles are in our relationships are so outdated. Done, done, done.
Yeah. Because you just mentioned to find that, that complementary other, person that complements you energetically. Would you say that it always has to be a love partnership, or because I've had friends that have had, their physical or love relationship with one person and were looking to get everything else filled up by other people, like having friends, best
Well,
friends, or things like that.
it takes a village to love us. So I agree with that because a lot of times people say, I just have to find my partner, and then they have to fill every need and want and space that, that makes me happy. But that's what I'm saying. Some friends, think about it. Some friends you go to talk deeply with. Other times you go friends who like to go play or like to go shop, or some friends you love to cook with. That you kind of need to spread it out. Or you may end up trying to make your partner, be responsible for all these different aspects of yourself.
Thank you for that, because that's, yeah, and there are so many, and especially in the old paradigm, your partner, if you weren't happy, it was your partner's fault. And that's, yeah.
But in the old paradigm as well, especially with stay-at-home moms, they would have friends, neighbors, right? That they'd connect with, they'd play cards with, they'd get together for play dates. They had that daytime support. So it was just kind of built in when it was more community oriented, when we were more connected in real life too. So, like I said, it's not perfect. It may have not been for everybody, but it was different then.
Because you mentioned it earlier, that the foundation, the first step is always coming back to yourself. Why do you think it is so important to, have a good relationship with yourself first before you have a good relationship with everybody else?
Well, it's first knowing about the unhealed parts of yourself. And I was just listening to a neuroscientist, and he's like, most of us have trauma, some to, higher degrees than others. But it's noticing that, and it's noticing, how you react to things, and owning that and communicating that. And if you don't know yourself or love those parts of you, and I do different modalities regarding that. Do feeding your demons, which is a Buddhist process of transforming your demons, because those parts that we push down of ourselves can come out sideways and really, and if you haven't dealt with those triggers, can blow up relationships and cause a lot of problems in relationships. So I suggest, in somatic work, being connected to your body. And meditation helps with that as well. Yoga, breath work, because that's where your feelings are. And while a lot of times people hush hush, or belittle feelings, they are so important navigational tools for us to understand where those wounds lie and also where our strengths are. And knowing yourself within that context and healing. And really finding those subconscious messages that about not enoughness or brokenness that I've seen everybody has to some varying degrees. It's owning that and loving the heck out of it and taking, again, taking ownership in that. So it's about being able to be alone and not be lonely.
I love that you're saying that, because I remember for me, one of the experience that I had at some point was realizing that I felt lonely. So I asked myself, why am I feeling lonely? Like, I'm not supposed to be feeling lonely. There's everything, like, I know I'm surrounded by good people. And then I realized that actually loneliness was a sign of not being connected with myself. Right?
And let's take it a little further. And I know not everybody's spiritual, but the part of healing that idea of loneliness and lack of meaning in your life is some kind of spiritual connection on your own perspective, your own means, however you see it. Something bigger than yourself, who isn't human, because spirit won't hurt you, even though, and while humans don't intentionally to, we're all humans. We're perfectly imperfect. So to expect other humans not to hurt you it's going to be impossible. So as I've learned to do that and getting to know myself, the reflection in my love from spirit has helped me find myself in deeper ways in connections with my guides.
I love that. And another thing that you mentioned that I love as well is, having that, because I feel it's the feminine side, but not only for women, also for men. That part that you mentioned earlier with not allowing ourselves to feel the feelings. Because I feel a lot of the times we have actually been brought up to be afraid of our feelings, because those feelings, I mean, for women, it means you're hysterical and, you're out of your mind when you're just going, ooh. And again, for men, it was just a no-go. I mean, you're not allowed to cry as a man, like all those old paradigms. And they're still around somehow, because I feel like even now what we call the Gen Zs or the millennials are getting a little bit better, because I feel like they just take the space for their feelings. But at least in my generation, I feel there's still so much healing necessary, because there's still so much of that inside of this afraidness of our feelings, right?
Yeah, as a kid, I was to be seen and not heard. And I wasn't allowed to disagree with any of the the authorities' views on things. And if I had feelings about it, that was wrong too, because I was making other people uncomfortable because I was having feelings because I didn't like a certain situation. So I learned to get really quiet, and I learned to bury my feelings. And I think that contrast has led me down that road to what is love, because that didn't feel like love. So in this pain and this, as I've moved through that and loved myself and healed that, it sent me down that path of, my dharma, to learn about love and teach other people to love themselves.
And I think, and that's something so many of us can learn from it. Because I remember making that circle to the relationships. If I look at the relationships I had, how afraid I was to show myself vulnerable, to show myself that I have pain, that I have feelings, that there is that. And if I don't do that in the beginning, at least get started once the pink glasses come off. Start showing yourself the way you are. You're not going to start doing it in 10 years after, right?
That's what I teach people, and that's about authenticity. And that first comes with self-love and knowing yourself and being confident in who you are and being okay if when you're dating somebody's not a good fit. Because I think a lot of people not knowing themselves, feeling insecure and feeling not lovable, will wear a mask. And guess what? You can't continue to wear it all the time. I hear people say, well, I thought she was this person. I thought he was this person. And down the road, the mask falls off. You can't hold up that. And going and loving yourself and having it about you instead of about doing whatever it takes to have the other person like you. That's where the superficiality comes in. People don't even know they're doing it.
And that way you're stuck with someone that actually doesn't fit with you, right?
Oh, it happens all the time. And then you feel like, well, what else is out there? I might as well stay. Dane is his last name, but he had a perspective that 90% of people are in relationship just to be in relationship.
Which is also part of the old paradigm. I mean, if for example,
Thank
I'm
you.
over 40, still single, and I'm loving my single life because I've been focusing on me. That was important for me. But if I talk to my aunts and tell them I'm happy by myself and I'm happy with this, and they go like, no way, how can you be, like, how can you be this? You need to have children, you need to have a partner. And I find it so, I mean, I'm grateful that I've never had that pull so hard, but I know how many friends of mine, especially, when children, I want to have children. So I find a partner to have children with, to just realize a year later when I'm already pregnant that partner is not for me, right? And then separate, but I have the
Yes,
child.
and we live in a delusion given out by media and things like that that will overlook the red flags or the incompatibility or the inability to communicate or their inability to see you or hear you. I mean, there's so many of that, but it's just like you just stay in fantasy land. And we talked about being an empath, and empaths are guilty of this because we have a gift as empaths to be able to see somebody healed.
Yeah.
And it's a gift and a curse. And as a coach, it's awesome because I know I'm getting somebody from here because I can say, this is where I see you, and I can hold that for people. But it doesn't work like that in relationships. You can't change anybody in a relationship. And you can't say, oh, I have this healed version of you. Can you just become that?
Thank you so much that you're saying that, because I mean, this goes for all the empaths on any kind of relationship, not just the partner relationships, because it's like we tend to grab the project. I see your love and light, and I know I can get you there, even though you're not there right now.
My love will heal you, broken or bird with a broken wing.
Yeah.
Projects, yes. Say no to projects. And you meet somebody and you can see their potential. Trust that what you see and what people tell you when you first meet them is who they are.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Yes.
Bam.
Yes. Yes. Trust in that. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. How would you say, like, if someone of our listeners are listening in and they're going like, okay, so I want to manifest my next partner. I was listening in to Andrea. So how do I start that? How do I get going?
Well, it's kind of like we talked about, is learning who you are. And I do, like, I'm thinking of a mandala that I do. I have this one intervention where I have them write down all the things they want in their ideal partner. And then I say, turn it around on you. I'm like, where are the parts in here that you still need work on? It's about showing up as you would like your partner to, and doing that work. And when I'm coaching people who are single, I said, get off the dating sites, get off. We're just going to focus on you. And I think about it like putting a ring on. You're going to commit, I do to you. Commit to you. And then going through creating that heart-centered container to go through these things, find those wounds, heal them, forgive the past, and then learn to become confident and feel valued within yourself first. Then you go out into the world, and the world reacts different. Because whatever is in your thoughts and your feelings is always manifested out in the world. That's why it always starts with you.
Yes. And that's what later then attracts the partner that you want.
And people say, why do I keep attracting the same person over and over? I'm like, who's the common denominator? Not to be harsh, but sometimes I got to be to the point.
And I love that because it's necessary. I mean, if I look back at my dating, before all my spiritual work and everything that I've done, you get the second, you get the third, that has the same problems and triggers and everything. And it's exactly the same when you're sitting there going like, so why did that happen again? Well, did you look at it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. If you don't heal and forgive from the past, and forgiveness doesn't mean saying that's okay that this happened, but you got to take some responsibility and still staying in there, even though you saw it happening, because there's some attraction, there's some phenomenon about choosing people with issues that you still need to resolve with your primary caregivers. And usually your most conflictual relationship in your childhood is the partner you're going to choose, because there's some unconscious idea that if I figure it out here, it'll heal my past.
And it's so wonderful because once you get on this journey of healing yourself, you're going to attract all kinds of wonderful people around you. And not just in your life partner, also in friendships, and even family sort of starts sorting itself out a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Can I tell you a secret?
Yes, go.
Sometimes
for our listeners.
Sometimes I'm coming up close and whispering. Okay, I'm going to tell you all a secret. That sometimes when I work with people and they learn to love themselves, their fixation on finding a partner dissipates. And then it becomes more about the love for themselves and being of service of other people. And you're not looking to fill a void anymore. So that preoccupation with finding that significant other to fill that void goes away. The void is filled, and it's not an urgent thing anymore.
I love that you're saying that, because that's actually what happened to me. For me was, way back when, oh my God, now you're 27, now you're 30, you gotta have, you have to find the partner, the one you're gonna grow old with. And it was such it's also this pressure of, for some people, it's also the pressure of getting a family, having kids and everything.
Yes.
But for so many, it's also this yearning, this loneliness, like you said. But the moment you start, healing the things within yourself and becoming more self-loved loving yourself more, that's when you're more, like what I said earlier with the loneliness, because you're so much more connected with you that the loneliness doesn't exist anymore, because you are connected with yourself.
Yeah, and what happens when you are in lack and you're needing something, you're needing and you're chasing something? That is not a good thing, because you are going to chase the wrong thing, and you're not going to be vibrating at the place of finding that partner. And I just was messaging a possible client, and he was saying he's just like, I don't love myself because nobody loves me. And I left a little voice memo, and I'm like, that's backwards, because you got to first love yourself in order to have somebody love you. And it's so true. And it's a hard shift in our brain, because we've been taught that you are not, I'm not there's a song, I'm not somebody until somebody loves me, or, you're not somebody until somebody loves you. But the you is you.
And I have to bring this in, and I don't want to make it too Catholic or churchy, but, in the Bible, we have that sentence, love thy neighbor like you love yourself. So it starts with yourself first before you start, loving everybody else. And I think John Lennon had this beautiful quote where he talks about, we're taught that we need to find our other halves, but we're not halves. We are whole, just the way we are.
And there's the fixation on twin flame too. And actually the twin flame energy is the super magnetized mirror. Yeah. And the twin flame journeys, really, they're no, I will be whole, when I'm like, no, you are going to be healed as you meet your twin flame. but whole may be a process. And speaking of runner and chaser, and it's a process to finding and healing yourself.
I love that you're saying that, because this was actually very beautiful said, because for me, I mean, I've watched this, you hear about twin flames and things like that, and I believe that if someone believes in it, that's what they believe in as well. But I think it's the aspect about it, which is way more important, is the healing part. That we don't have to wait for anyone else to make us whole, not even a twin flame.
And if you're really going deeper into the twin flame connection, you're never separate. And that's the same thing. You're never separate from yourself. It's a metaphor. So you're never separate from that energy, even though in your mind you feel like it, and that's what you need to heal. And that's the same thing with your spirituality, spiritual connection, being one with the divine energy.
Yes, I actually started to hear some love songs. Sometimes, I'll hear, and this is like in the beginning when I started to heal that part for me. And I remember listening to, it's not a love song, but there is a part where it's sort of like a love message from one person to another. And I was listening to that, and I remember like I really teared up, because it felt like my soul was telling me that part, like, I am in love with who you are manifested in this body, and that's how it's supposed to be. And ever since then, every now and then I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful, thank you, my dear soul, for loving me. And thank you for showing me that I love myself.
Yes, during the hard parts, hard transitions in my life, especially with relationship, James Taylor, you got a friend, would always come on. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. All you have to do is call. You've got a friend. Every time I'd cry, but I'm like, and my heart would open up, and I'm like, it was a message from the divine.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. Another thing that I'd like to go into as well was the part where you were talking about the lack. When we are in this lack and needy energy. And this goes for everything, but I feel especially with relationships, when we are in this needy energy, and I'm saying this a little bit, like that, because I want everybody to become playful with this, because and to release it. This neediness, imagine that needy energy. What are you going to attract? It's needy. So you're going to attract needy person in different kinds of ways that are going to be surrounding you, that are going to be resonating with that neediness.
Or you're going to be attracting your lesson to move back into love with yourself. Yes, lack, need, I don't have. You're telling the universe, give me more. Yeah. Give me more of not feeling loved. Give me more of my not enoughness. Give me more of that. And while I say it sounds horrible, then those partners are going to mirror that back to you. And you could be with the partner of your dreams, but if you're not vibrating there, you're coming from a place of need, you're going to repel that so fast. Somebody healthy is going to be like, yeah, no. So, and either, oh my gosh, I got it, and I've got to cover up all this stuff. It's going to come out somewhere, and energy does not lie. So we can pretend that we are open for love and we've healed all our past wounds, but the energy does not lie. And you can feel when somebody's heart chakra is open and when it's covered up.
Yes. I love that. And also, I know it's hard truth to hear, but on the other hand, it's also empowering, because it means that you have the possibility now to change it, so it doesn't happen anymore.
Yes, and it's just aligning with that energy. And listeners, we're not taught like this. We're taught to moan and groan and talk about what we don't have in our lives and woe is me and victim. You gotta get out of that victim state. And you need to keep in mind the vision of what you're wanting, the vision in your heart, the vision in your head, and believe it's going to happen and take those steps. You don't sit on the couch and say, okay, I want a relationship, I want, and don't go out. Or I want a relationship, I want a relationship, and, see, I'm not getting it. You also have to take some action. But the action doesn't necessarily mean running out and getting somebody. It again comes back to you. Where am I in lack? Where do I not feel lovable? Where do I feel broken? And what messages are running through my mind all the time, naysaying every time I'm like, oh, that person was really nice. Maybe I'll ask them out for coffee, or maybe I'll see if I can get the number from my friend. And you go, no, nope. And already, in you're halfway in and halfway out. And that fear comes up that people are going to see the not enoughness.
Yes.
And you close your heart.
Yes. And that allows no one in. Yeah.
And that's the most lonely place.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Do you believe that, because I don't know why this question comes up, but do you believe that maybe, if someone's single out there and is listening into us and goes like, so I want to work on myself, but I feel like that's going to take years. Will I be able to attract a partner before that? Like, could I, like midway in my healing journey, would it be possible for a partner to come in?
That's an excellent question. And I think it depends on everybody, but just don't sit on the couch. And sometimes reading books don't exactly work, and while I'll plug myself, get an outsider, and sometimes not a family member, because they have their own stock in you or their own vision of what they think is good for you. So kind of a non-partial person, a relationship coach, and even an empathy coach to help you focus on you and healing your things first. And we can't, speaking of attachment, we can't be attached to win, because when we let the universe decide, we got to leave it up to the universe. It's on a universal timeline, and all you can do is focus on your own healing and loving you, and engaging in the things that you love to do. And being around the people that are higher vibrational too, because we are only a sum of the 5 people we're around. So if we're hanging out with lower vibrational people and naysayers, that's going to affect our energy as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Like even the people are surrounding you could be affecting, what you are, the people you're attracting. Because what if you have amazing friend? What if you are vibing nicely, but you're still hanging on to 1 or 2 friends that are sort of like, I don't know, not your vibes anymore, but because of the old long year friendship, and you're hanging out in a bar or in a club, and your perfect person is there, but you can't see them because there are other energies blocking it.
And know that there's always an energy exchange.
Yes.
So, and if we're trying to and like you were talking about it, not that being an empath, I could feel my heart closing up and hiding my 3rd chakra, because I'm feeling because they will drain you whenever you're with somebody. And let's say you're vibrating up here in love and joy, and they're vibrating down here in resentment or apathy. They love it because you're bringing them up, but you have to come down to meet them halfway. It's just the law of energy. Yeah. It just is. So if you're like, well, I can't let that friend go, or they need me, we've been friends for so long, that's another part of self-care. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you have to divorce them, but you change the dynamics and the boundaries with them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you're mentioning that. Yeah, you just don't meet with them every day. Do it every, once a week maybe. You can still be friends, just, free your own energy of that a little bit more.
And that's another thing. If you want to change your outer world, you got to take action and let go of the things that aren't serving you anymore. Yeah. That are keeping you vibrating lower. Whether it be an addiction, whether it be a thought process, whether it be toxic people or lower vibrational people. You have to be willing to let that go, to choose yourself first.
Yeah. Make yourself number one. Yeah. Oh, Andrea, I really love this so much. Tell us a little bit, like, if anybody here from our listeners were like, oh my God, Andrea, I want to work with you. What is it that you offer right now? How can they work with you?
Well, right now I have this great program. It's an 8-week international online program, and it's called Mindful Love. And it's for individuals or couples. And for the individuals, I do exactly what I talked about on this podcast. I take them through steps to know themselves, to know their value, and be able to express that in the confidence in the world, and then attract in that mindful, conscious mate. And then with couples, I help them rewrite their love story to bring in the passion, the intimacy, and the things that they feel like is lacking from their relationship. So you can go ahead and get a hold of me and sign up for a clarity call. AndreaAtherton.com is my website. You can find me on Facebook at Andrea Atherton /17, and then on Instagram, Drea Atherton, DREA, and it's ATHERTON. And you can also go on any application for podcasts and find me at Love Anarchy Podcast and listen to May being my guest, which was such a pleasure.
Oh, I love that so much. So we're going to put all the links below. You don't have to, you can just go into the show notes or into the description of the video and just click on them, and I'll link in our episode, but I'll also link in your podcast. I love that it's called Love Anarchy. That's so beautiful. How did that name came up?
That's interesting because I had like all the fluffy names and then I had that name, but I always connected with the idea of like being an anarchist. And anarchy is about dismissing the ways we've been taught what love is and allowing ourselves to bring our unique definition into the relationships that we create, whether it be love, whether it be relationship with ourselves. It's giving us permission to do that. So I was batting back and forth. And so I was putting out some other names, and I can't even remember offhand, the standard ones. And I'm like, hey, friends, what do you think? I got such strong reactions one way or another about Love Anarchy. I'm like, it's a go.
Oh, I love that so much. So you're going to find all the links below. Andrea, thank you so much for being here. This was so beautiful. Do you have like one last thing you want to tell our listeners?
The phrase I use, it's abbreviated at the end of my podcast, but one thing that is really powerful that I say to my clients and I say to myself, putting my hands over my heart beats regularly with love. Love is the only true power.
I love this so much, and I was just putting my hand for everybody listening, and
I was too.
I put it right here, and it just started to get warmer. That was so beautiful. Thank you.
I was sending it out, and yes, and we're all connected via the heart if we're able to open it up.
So everybody, if you'd like to just replay that part, go a little bit back in the video or the audio, and just listen to it again, and let your heart be warm. And feel all the love. Andrea, thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun.
Oh, my pleasure, May. It's been such an honor.
Thank you. And now to everybody, as always, keep surfing your energy wave. And thank you for tuning in. Have a great time. Bye, everybody.